Martha,
I hate this story. Really, I've always hated it. And I'm glad you're all enjoying it. Here's why I hated it. My name is Martha, okay? But I don't act like the Martha in the story. I am more like Mary. And even though that is a good thing in this story, it was not a good thing in the house I was raised in. Good people were the Marthas of the world. Good little Christian girls especially. They were the ones who got up early in the morning and had perfectly clean houses and were always willing to welcome guests and feed an unexpected visitor. They were the Marthas of the world. I would have been much more likely to hang out at the feet of Jesus and to listen to what he had to say, and would have been considered the two worst things, selfish and lazy. I have always felt shame that I am not a better Martha. It seems a cruel joke that Martha is my name. But though the story is often reduced to a discussion of women's roles, I don't think that that's what it's about. And I don't think Jesus told this story to shame Martha. Now, a few of you might remember a movie that was out many years ago called City Slickers. It was a comedy about three businessmen who had been old friends since youth, and every year they took a trip. They were approaching midlife, so they decided it was time for them to spend some time at a dude ranch. Actually, Cindy, you spent time at a dude ranch, didn't you? Yeah. Anybody else here do that? They were going to go and show that they were manly men. They were going to help herd a bunch of cattle with seasoned cowboys. Well, the boss of the cattle drive is this leathery old cowboy named Curly, who lives up to all the stereotypes of cowboys. He's mean and he's tough, and he can do anything with a rope or a whip or a knife. But in his tough and rugged way, he's also very wise. In one of the more serious scenes of this comedy, Curly is riding alongside one of these city slickers, a character played by Billy Crystal, and their conversation turns more philosophical. Against the backdrop of the open sky and the rough-hewn mountains and clear streams and the jaggedy, beautiful scenery, the man on vacation turns to Curly and says with longing, "Your life makes sense to you." To which Curly replies, "You city folk, you worry a lot. How old are you? 38? 39, the man says. You all come up here about the same age, Curly says. You spend 50 weeks of the year getting knots in your rope, and then you think 2 weeks up here will untie them for you. None of you get it." He pauses a minute and then he goes on, "You know what the secret of life is?" "No, what?" says the man. And then Curly says, "One thing. You stick to that and everything else don't mean nothing." "That's great," says his companion. "And what's the one thing?" Curly looks at him for a minute and says, "That's what you've got to figure out." In a way, this is exactly what Jesus says to Martha when he chides her in this passage that we just heard Bob read. He does not say that service and hospitality are not important. Indeed, he is known to feed hungry people. What he does say is, pay attention to the moment. Right now, your busyness and your food preparation and serving, and especially your resentment about doing them, are distracting. You are missing what is important. Mary gets it. First things first. Ever hear that? Mm-hmm. First things first. What was most important in that moment was listening to what Jesus was teaching. Sitting at his feet, hanging on his every word, devotion. Mary had to break a whole bunch of norms to do that. She had to be an irresponsible woman, not doing her duty in the kitchen. She had to break all the religious and cultural roles to join with these men, because she would have been the only woman in the room. But Mary paid attention, and in that moment, she knew that listening to Jesus was the one thing that was more important than anything else. all need times of being and times of doing. If we didn't have a lot of doers in our church, we wouldn't have a feast every Sunday after the service. But I don't think Jesus was saying one thing is better than the other. Contemplation and service are two sides of the same coin, but we need to pay attention to what is important in the moment. How do I know what God's will for me is in this moment? How do you know? Well, that's between you and God. But first things first. If you are in recovery, going to a meeting may be your top priority. Even if you have to miss an occasion or an event that others think should be your first priority. When we are paying attention to God, our priorities can shift quickly. Last week we heard the story of the Good Samaritan. Two important people, a priest and a Levite, passed the beat-up man on the side of the road. No doubt they had other priorities. What they were going to do was probably very important. The Samaritan somehow knew that this man was the one thing that mattered to God in that moment. He stopped to help and instantly disregarded whatever it was he was journeying towards. What is the one thing that is important for you to give your time and devotion to today? If you don't know, it's always good to pause. I recently heard, we say pause a lot around here, but I recently heard at a meeting a wonderful acronym, pay attention until spirit emerges. Often our busyness can get in the way of that. It can even be a form of violence. I remember once riding on a long car trip. It's always in the car trips when you're driving across Kansas and listening to AM radio that these God stories come to you. But there was a man on the radio, and he was telling his story. He was talking about how important his job had been to him and how busy he always was. He said even after work at the end of the day, he'd come home and he'd do more work. So he'd go into his home office and be at his desk. His little son would come in and say, "Hey, Dad, can you go throw a ball for me?" And he'd say, "Oh, when I'm done, I'm busy now," and you know how that is. And then his son would say, "Come outside and look at what I've made." And he'd say, "I'm busy right now, let me finish my work." One day, his son was riding his bicycle in the neighborhood and was hit by a car, and he died instantly. And this man said, as he looked back, he realized every single thing his son had asked him to do would have taken like maybe 10 minutes tops. 10 minutes. And he said, I decided I would never say no to any of my other children again when they asked for my attention. What's calling on you and asking for your attention? Who needs your undivided attention and love? Who needs to be heard or seen or listened to today? Put down your cell phone and really listen to that family member or to that person at coffee hour. Or pick up your cell phone and reach out to someone who needs to hear from you today. First things first. You know the secret. One thing. You stick to that, and everything else don't mean nothing.